Welcome to Veranda IAS. In this session, we shall discuss the Economic Survey, Government of India 2022. The Economic Survey of India is an annual document of the Ministry of Finance, Government of India. The Department of Economic Affairs, the Ministry of Finance, presents the survey in the Parliament every year before the Union Budget. The survey is prepared under the guidance of the Chief Economic Advisor of India. This document is presented to both the houses of the Parliament during the budget session. The first economic survey of India was presented in the year 1950-51 as a part of the Union Budget. Since 1964, this was separated from the budget and presented each year during the budget session before the presentation of the budget. The nature of the document is non-binding. That is, the economic survey will be presented first, followed by the Union Budget. The Union Minister for Finance and Corporate Affairs, Smt Nirmala Sitharaman, presented the Economic Survey 2021-22 in the Parliament on the 31st of January 2022. Now, coming to discuss the highlights of the economic survey. First, regarding the state of the economy. The Indian economy estimated to grow by 9.2% in real terms in the year 2021-22 as per the first advanced estimates, subsequent to a fall or a contraction of 7.3% in the year 2020-21. The GDP projection to grow by 8 to 8.5% in the real terms in the year 2022-23. And the year ahead is also poised for a pickup in the private sector investment, with the financial system being in a good position to provide support for the economy's revival, especially very important in the post-pandemic situation. The projection, comparable with the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank's latest forecasts of the real GDP growth of 8.7% and 7.5% respectively for the year 2022-23. The agriculture and the allied sectors, which was also doing pretty well during the pandemic times, is expected to grow by 3.9%, the industries to grow by 11.8% and service sector by 8.2% in the year 2021-22. On the demand side, the consumption estimated to grow by 7% and the gross fixed capital formation by 15%, the exports to grow by 16.5% and the imports by 29.4% in the year 2021-22. The macroeconomic stability indicators suggest that the Indian economy is well placed to take on the challenges of the year 2022-23. The combination of high foreign exchange reserves, sustained foreign direct investment, rising export earnings altogether will provide adequate buffer against possible global liquidity tapering in the 2022-23. The Government of India's unique response comprised of the safety nets to cushion impact on vulnerable sections of the society and the business sector to significantly increase in the capital expenditure to spur growth and supply side reforms for a sustained long-term expansion. The government's flexible and multi-layered response is partly based on an agile framework. Agile framework, the theme of the Economic Survey 2022, that uses feedback loops and the use of 80 high-frequency indicators. See, the high-frequency indicators, it can be the electricity consumption, the nighttime lights, intensity of the nitrogen oxide emissions, especially in the urban areas, and so on. So this in an environment of extreme uncertainty. Regarding the fiscal developments, the revenue receipts from the central government April to November 2021 have gone up by 67.2% year over year, as against an expected growth of 9.6% in the 2021-22 budget estimates over 2020-21 provisional actuals of the budget. The gross tax revenue registers a growth of over 50% during the April to November 2021 in the year-over-year terms. This performance is strong when compared to the pre-pandemic levels of the 2019-20 also. During the April to November 2021, the capital expenditure has grown by 13.5% year over year, with a focus on the infrastructure intensive sectors. The sustained revenue collection and the targeted expenditure policy has contained the fiscal deficit from April to November 2021 at 46.2% of the budgetary estimates. With the enhanced borrowings on account of the COVID-19, the central government debt has gone up from 49.1% of the GDP in the year 2019-20 to 59.3% of the GDP in the year 2020-21. But this is expected to follow a declining trajectory as the economy would recover. Moving on to the external sectors. India's merchandise exports and imports rebounded strongly and surpassed the pre-COVID levels during the current financial year. There was significant pickup in the net services, with both receipts and the payments crossing the pre-pandemic levels despite the weak tourism revenues, where the tourism revenue faced a death blow, especially during the pandemic times. The net capital flow were higher at 65.6 billion US dollars in the first half of the year 2021-22 on account of the continued inflow of foreign investment, revival in the net external commercial borrowings, higher banking capital and additional special drawing rights allocation. India's external debt rose to 593.1 billion US dollars at the end of September 2021 from 556.8 billion US dollars a year earlier, reflecting additional SDR allocations by the International Monetary Fund coupled with the higher commercial borrowings. The foreign exchange reserves crossed 600 billion US dollars in the first half of the year 2021-22 and touched 633.6 billion US dollars as of December 31st, 2021. And as of the end of November 2021, India was the fourth largest foreign exchange reserves holder in the world after China, Japan and Switzerland. Moving on to the monetary management and financial intermediation. The liquidity in the system remained in surplus. The repo rate, primarily used by the monetary authorities to control inflation in the country, the rate at which the Reserve Bank of India lends to the commercial banks in case of shortage of funds, was maintained at 4% in the year 2021-22. The Reserve Bank of India undertook various measures such as the Government Securities Acquisition, the GSEC program, and the special long-term repo operations to provide further liquidity. And the economic shock of the pandemic has been weathered well by the commercial banking system in the country. The year-over-year bank credit growth accelerated gradually in the year 2021-22 from 5.3% in the April 2021 to 9.2% as on 31st of December 2021. The gross non-performing advances ratio of the scheduled commercial banks declined from 11.2% at the end of 2017-18 to 6.9% at the end of September 2021. The net non-performing advances ratio also declined from 6% to 2.2% during the same period. The capital to risk weighted asset ratio of the SCBs continued to increase from 13% in the year 2013-14 to 16.54% at the end of September 2021. The return on assets and return on equity for the public sector banks continue to be positive for the period ending September 2021. Despite the pandemic times, the year 2021 has been an exceptional year for the capital markets. Rupees 89,066 crores were raised via the 75 initial public offering issues in the April to November 2021, which is much higher than in any year in the last decade. The Sensex and Nifty scaled up to touch a peak of 61,766 and 18,477 on October 18, 2021. And among major emerging market economies, the Indian markets had outperformed peers in the April to December 2021. Moving on to the prices and inflation. The average headline consumer price index combined inflation moderated to 5.2% in the year 2021-22, April to December, from 6.6% in the corresponding period of 2020-21. The decline in retail inflation was led by easing of food inflation. Food inflation averaged at a low of 2.9% in the year 2021-22, that is April to December, as against 9.1% in the corresponding period of the last year. The effective supply side management kept prices most of the essential commodities under control during the year. The proactive measures were taken by the government to contain the price rises in the pulses and the edible oils. The reduction in the central excise and subsequent cuts in the value-added tax by most of the states helped ease petrol and the diesel prices. The wholesale inflation based on the wholesale price index rose to 12.5% during the year 2021-22, April to December. And this has been attributed mainly to the low base in the previous year, the pickup in the economic activity in the country, the sharp increase in the international prices of the crude oil and other imported inputs, and the high freight cost. The divergence between the consumer price index combined and the wholesale price index inflation. The divergence peaked to 9.6 percentage points in May 2020. However, this year there was a reversal in divergence, with retail inflation falling below wholesale inflation by 8 percentage points in December 2021. This divergence can be explained by factors such as variations due to base effect, difference in scope and coverage of the two indices, price collections, the items covered, and the difference in the commodity weights, the wholesale price index being more sensitive to cost push inflation. Here, in the cost push inflation, there is always a tendency for an increase in the wages and the raw materials to go up, thereby increasing the cost of production. So here, the cost push inflation led by imported inputs. So, with the gradual waning of the base effect in the wholesale price index, the divergence in the consumer price index combined and the wholesale price index is also expected to narrow down. Regarding sustainable development and climate change, India's overall score on the Niti Aayog Sustainable Development Goals, India Index and Dashboard improved to 66 in the year 2020-21 from 60 in 2019-20 and 57 in the year 2018 and 19. The number of front runners scoring 65 to 99 increased to 22 states and union territories in the year 2020-21 from 10 in the year 2019 and 20. In Northeast India, 64 districts were front runners and 39 districts were performers in the Niti Aayog Northeastern Region District Sustainable Development Goals Index in the year 2021-22. And India has the 10th largest forest area in the world thanks to the great initiatives by the government in protecting the species and promoting and preserving the forest cover in the country. In the year 2020, India ranked third globally in increasing its forest area during 2010 to 2020. In the year 2020, the forests covered 24% of India's total geographical, accounting for 2% of the world's total forest area. In August 2021, the Plastic Waste Management Amendment Rules 2021 was notified, which is aimed at phasing out single-use plastic by 2022. The draft regulation on the extended producer responsibility for plastic packaging was also notified. The compliance status of grossly polluting industries located in the Ganga mainstream and its tributaries improved from 39% in the year 2017 to 81% in the year 2020. And the consequent reduction in the effluent discharge has been from 349.13 millions of liters per day in the year 2017 to 280.20 millions of liters per day in the year 2020. The Prime Minister, as a part of the national statement delivered at the 26th Conference of Parties in Glasgow in the year November 2021, that is the most recent UN Climate Change Conference, announced ambitious targets to be achieved by the year 2030 to enable further reduction in the emissions. The need to start the one-word movement lifestyle for environment, urging mindful and deliberate utilization instead of mindless and destructive consumption was underlined. Moving on to the agriculture and food management. The agricultural sector experienced buoyant growth in the past 2 years. As I mentioned earlier, the agriculture has been a sector doing pretty well even during the worst pandemic times in the country, accounting for a sizable 18.8% in the year 2021-22 in gross value added of the country, registering a growth of 3.6% in the year 2020-21 and 3.9% in the year 2021-22. The minimum support price policy is being used to promote crop diversification. The net receipts from crop production has increased by 22.6% in the latest Situation Assessment Survey compared to the Situation Assessment Survey report of the year 2014. The allied sectors, including animal husbandry, dairy, fisheries, are steadily emerging to be the high growth sectors and major drivers of the overall growth in the agricultural sector. So it has also been the allied activities giving a great boost to the agricultural sector. The livestock sector has grown at a CAGR, the compound annual growth rate of 8.15% over the last 5 years ending 2019 and 20. And it has been a stable source of income across groups of agricultural households, accounting for about 15% of their average monthly income. The government facilitates food processing through various measures of infrastructure development, subsidized transportation, and support for formalization of the micro-food enterprises. And India runs one of the largest food management programs in the world. The government has further extended the coverage of food security network through the schemes like the Prime Minister Garib Kalyan Yojana. The industry and infrastructure. The index of industrial production grew at 17.4% year over year during April to November 2021 as compared to a negative 15.3% in the April to November 2020. The capital expenditure for the Indian Railways has increased to rupees 1,55,181 crores in the year 2020-21 from an average annual of rupees 45,980 crores during the year 2009-14, and it has been budgeted to further increase to rupees 2,15,058 crores in the year 2021-22, a 5-time increase when compared to the 2014 level. And the extent of road construction per day has increased substantially in the year 2020-21 to 36.5 kilometers per day from 28 kilometers per day in the year 2019-20. Again, a rise of 30.4%. The net profit to sales ratio of large corporates, according to a study made by the Reserve Bank of India, reached an all-time high of 10.6% in the July to September quarter of the year 2021-22 in spite of the pandemic. The introduction of production-linked incentive scheme, a major boost provided to the infrastructure, both physical as well as digital, along with measures to reduce transaction costs and improve ease of doing business, would support the pace of the recovery. Moving on to the services sector. The gross value added of services crossed pre-pandemic level in the July to September quarter of the year 2021-22. However, the GVA of the contact-intensive sectors like trade, transport, etc. still remain below the pre-pandemic level. The overall service sector gross value added is expected to grow by 8.2% in the year 2021-22. And during April to December 2021, the rail freight crossed its pre-pandemic level, while the air freight and the port traffic almost reached their pre-pandemic levels. The domestic air and the rail passenger traffic are increasing gradually, and this shows the impact of the second wave was much more muted as compared during the first wave. And during the first half of the 2021-22, the service sector received over 16.7 billion US dollars foreign direct investment, accounting for almost 54% of the total foreign direct investment inflows into India. The Information Technology Business Process Management Services revenue reached 194 billion US dollars in the year 2020-21, adding 1.38 lakh employees during the same period. The major government reforms include removing telecom regulations in the IT BPO sector and opening up of space sector to private players. The services exports surpassed pre-pandemic level in the January to March quarter of the year 2020-21 and grew by 21.6% in the first half of the 2021-22, strengthened by the global demand for software and the IT services exports. And India has become the third largest startup ecosystem in the world after US and China. The number of new recognized startups increased to over 14,000 in the year 2021-22 from 733 in the 2016-17. And after Bengaluru, it is Delhi which has become the startup capital of India recently. 44 Indian startups have achieved unicorn status in the year 2021, taking overall tally of unicorns to 83, most of which are in the services sector. As regards the social infrastructure and the employment are concerned, 157.94 crore doses of the COVID-19 vaccines have been administered as on 16th of January 2022, of which 91.39 crores of first dose and 66.05 crores of second dose vaccination has been given. With the revival of the economy, employment indicators bounced back to the pre-pandemic levels during the last quarter of the year 2020-21. And as per the quarterly periodic labor force survey, the data up to March 2021, the employment in the urban sector affected by the pandemic has recovered and almost to the pre-pandemic level. And according to the Employees Provident Fund Organization data, the formalization of jobs continued during the second COVID wave, and the adverse impact of the COVID on formalization of jobs much lower than during the first COVID wave. The expenditures on the social services like health, education and others by the center and the states as a proportion of the GDP increased from 6.2% in the year 2014-15 to 8.6% in the year 2021-22, the budgetary estimates. And as per the National Family Health Survey 5, the total fertility rate came down to 2% in the year 2019-21 from 2.2% in the year 2015 and 16. Regarding the infant mortality rate, under 5 mortality rate and institutional births have improved in the year 2019 to 21 over the year 2015 and 16. And under the Jal Jeevan Mission, 83 districts have become Har Ghar Jal districts. The increased allotment of funds to the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, the famous MNREGS, to provide buffer for the unorganized labor in the rural areas during the pandemic. These were some of the key highlights of the Economic Survey 2022. Thank you for watching and keep learning with Veranda IAS.